the lens of your work and guerrilla warfare and things like that, what things do you see that the Ukrainians are doing or can be doing to overcome this larger enemy?
Well, I mean, at some point they were doing very brilliant things in the beginning. They knew that being dispersed was better than concentrating their forces. They knew that if they could draw the Russians into their cities, into their towns, they would have the advantage because they could fight in a guerrilla form of guerrilla warfare. The Russians with their tanks would be completely neutralized, right? So they were doing all kinds of things absolutely brilliantly because the terrain around Kiev in that part of Ukraine allowed them to do that. Now they're in the east where the terrain is much more flat, where there's not as many places to hide, where the Russians don't have the advantage, but they can use their artillery to endless effect. And it's very difficult. So I would never blame the Ukrainians. They're doing an absolutely brilliant job. And what they did was, why I compared them to Napoleon was, after they dealt with the Russian, that really nasty, nefarious invasion of the Crimea, right? And the Russians they're like devils. They're so devilishly clever and in kind of an evil way. They learned their lessons, the Ukrainians. We can't fight on the same terms as the Russians. We have to create mobility, maneuver warfare. We have to create a system where the soldiers on the field can make their own decisions. They don't have to wait. They created the equivalent of the Auftragstaktik, the mission statement that von Clausewitz talks about, right? And so they decentralized their army, which was absolutely the most brilliant thing they could do. Decentralization of a military force is a very powerful tool. Unfortunately, we see terrorist groups using that to great effect. It's very powerful. You have nowhere to hit. You don't know what center to hit at. So they did all the right things, but now they're in this ugly attrition warfare type game, and it's very difficult. Attrition warfare fights both ways. And attrition warfare basically means you're going to wear the other side down. You're going to bomb them until they're exhausted. And you don't care how many lives you lose. You do not care how long it takes. You're just going to wear them down. It's the ugliest form of warfare. It's the least creative form of warfare. That's what the Russians are doing. And it looks like they're succeeding, although in war you never know. It can turn around in a dime. And the moment all the great, all the pundits are saying, oh, Russia's winning or Ukraine's winning, 3 days later, it flips. So you learn a little bit of humility when you follow war, that these things can flip on a dime. And the Russians are expending so much of their military power right now, so much artillery, so many tanks have been taken out, so many planes have been destroyed, so many soldiers have been killed. We don't know how many, but tens of thousands of Russian soldiers have been killed. Ukrainians, at least probably as many, maybe a little bit less, but they're also paying a heavy price. But you can't eventually there's going to be a terrible price to pay on the Russian side for all that they're expending, money-wise, economically, morale-wise. So it looks good right now for them, but we don't have an X-ray into what's really going on to see underneath the surface, because war is tricky. At one point, somebody looks like they're winning, but there are weaknesses that are being shielded from our eyes for various reasons. And history and time reveals those weaknesses. We can't see what they are. We don't have a crystal ball. Nobody can predict exactly where this war will go. But if I had to put my money, I always put my money on the side with maneuverability that fights the Sun Tzu Napoleonic form of maneuver warfare.
That was a clip from my most recent interview with Robert Greene. To see the full interview, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.